I've had many opportunities in my life to find the light in the darkness. And in the end, so far, I can say that I have successfully found the light in even the darkest of my experiences, although rarely during those experiences. I find it most of the time upon reflection. As I complete this speech today, we are in the midst of the third wave of COVID-19. Many, if not most, of our global citizens are struggling in one way or another. Across the world, there is disaster and devastation striking many people in different ways. For many, it is very difficult to watch. It's difficult to know what to do. And for me personally, my experience has been one of moving through fear, dropping into fear, plummeting down into the pit of fear, then climbing out of it, finding a little faith and some peace, and then losing that ground and going back into fear, and thus the cycle continues. What I know from my own experience and being witness to the experiences of others is that without strife and struggle, there is no growth. I would wager that each of you can think back to a time of exponential growth and attribute it to a change or event that shook your world. It was hard when it was happening. It may have sent you into depression. It may have sent you into another coping strategy that you created when you were really young, like being hypervigilant or really organized. Those are mine. Or blaming someone else, or anger, frustration, possibly distracting with something like eating, drinking, social media scrolling, or pouring everything you've got into exercise. And when you got to the other side, life was different. Life was fuller. Life was more fulfilling. That was, of course, until the next difficult event. Well, this current difficult event is global and affects us all. We are all literally in this together, worldwide, all of us. How incredible is that? I mean, really, think about that. How incredible. I remember events in my life that affected a large portion of the world, but this is the first event that I think we're safe to say has touched every living human on this planet in one way or another. There's power in that. I can, in this moment, feel the awareness of that magnitude within me. So what is the potential? How can we respond? And how can the bulk of our responses be positive and for the greater good of all? Now, that is a question. We are so quick to point the finger out and blame the event, in this case, COVID-19. We are all so at the effect of COVID-19 that we've decided to hand it a great deal of power and control. An example of this is we've decided that when we type it, we should capitalize it, for example, like with the caps lock on. COVID-19 takes control, becomes bold and strong and in our face, and then back to caps lock off, and then everything else that follows is somehow less important. Now, please don't mistake this as me trivializing COVID-19 and the damage that it has caused us. That is not my point here. The grief and loss that have come from it are very real and worthy of our acknowledgement. What I am saying is, why make ourselves lesser than COVID-19, like it somehow is more important and grander than the rest of us? Our power lies within ourselves. And when we point the finger out to blame, we give that power away to that person or people or that event or whatever that thing may be. And then we suffer. And it's that suffering that I wish to address today. This is a rather large subject, so I'm going to do my best to be concise. Honestly, we suffer for a whole bunch of reasons, but they all stem from one place. Our suffering comes when we feel separate or perceive an inevitable separation. We as humans are instinctually characters of attachment. We are meant to be in connection from our birth. That's why when a baby is born, the very first thing they do is to look for the eyes of their caregiver. It is hardwired into us. So because it comes from instinct, when it looks like that attachment might go away, we freak the heck out. We don't really know why, and we think it's because that person or thing did something to us. But the truth is, we perceive separation, and that freaks us out. It makes us feel abandoned and unsafe and throws us into fear. So what do we do in order to not suffer? Well, sadly, I'm not sure that is even a thing. We're going to suffer. Suffering can catapult us into change that is necessary for our own growth, and all the universe wants for us is to be the best us that we can be. So we're going to get things that stand in our way so that we can continue to grow. And that is our dance with the universe. Now, whether you believe in something bigger than yourself or not, I think we can all agree and say that there have been things that have happened in each of our lives that lead us to believe that there is something grander than us, a bigger picture. And honestly, whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. What is important is that you learn as much about yourself and how you work and what makes you tick. You have to be the most important person to you. You are the only one that can truly meet your needs. No one else can do that for you, and no one else should be expected to do that for you. If you can be willing to be the only person to really and truly get you, then you will always be in attachment with yourself, and therefore will have no need to suffer until the event or obstacle gets too big and loud, and we forget again and start looking outside of ourselves to get our needs met. Life is a journey, and if we can live an examined life, as described in the book aptly named Living an Examined Life by James Hollis, you will find that in every moment you have the free will to live the life that you choose to live, not the life that others think you should live. When you choose to live a life of examination, then you have accountability over yourself, your past, your stories, and your responses. This comes into play in every single facet of our lives and can lead to a great deal of peace. As an aside, especially for those of you who are parents, if you're interested in more direct information about attachment theory, check out Dr. Gordon Neufeld and Dr. Dan Siegel. Let me start by saying that there is no one way to accomplish anything. There are always many paths and opportunities before us at all times. We just have to be open to pure potentiality. And we remain open by choosing to remain open. We do need to know that we have that option, though. So I guess the key is awareness, or being mindful. Mindfulness has become a bit of a trend or buzzword as of late, but it, or at least its core concepts, have been around since, well, forever. The act of being mindful is simply to be aware of our outer world and our inner world, and to pay attention. And in order to pay attention, we must become quiet. I have found that it is very difficult to be mindful while constantly talking. So, in order to maintain my awareness practice, I will pause before I speak to ensure what I am wanting to relay is truly what I am wanting to relay. It is a practice worthy of our efforts and way harder than it sounds, because boy, do I ever like to tell people what I really think sometimes. It doesn't make what I think true, though. I think there are steps that need to be taken in order to be able to meet our difficulties as opportunities for growth, which is how I define finding the light. First, we must honor our feelings. We are emotional beings, and that means that we feel. Our feelings are actually neutral. We just label them based on our past and usually pass some sort of judgment on them, which also comes from our past. When we allow ourselves to feel our feelings without judgment, then we are able to get through them. In order to get through them, we may get curious about the feeling. Then we might ask ourselves, when was the first time I felt this way? And now some of you who have had therapy and have done some inner child work are saying to yourselves, man, why does everything come back to my childhood? Well, because it does. Those formative years between 0 and 6 years old will always affect how we view the world. If we don't bring those unresolved issues to the light, we will always be at the effect of that. Our little selves created coping strategies and belief systems and judgments, all based on what we heard and saw. Thus, our inner world creates our outer world with our perspective based on our past. We limit our suffering when we are aware of the why behind our feelings, and a way to find the why is to get quiet enough to ask ourselves and listen for the answer. I have had many opportunities for growth throughout this pandemic. I, like many of you, had to homeschool my children in the early part of the pandemic. It was awful. I hated it. Like, absolutely hated it. My children also hated it. While I was homeschooling my children, I was also working full-time from home, which, as you can imagine, added to my stress. My first opportunity came during this period. I was exhausted. I wanted to strangle my children. I wanted to get in a sailboat and float away. My breaking point was when my son, on day 3 of refusing to do any schoolwork, insisted that he was not going to do any schoolwork ever. I literally threw my hands up with his work pages and walked out of the kitchen to cool off. I was having an all-over reaction. My hands were shaking. I felt like a terrible mother because I couldn't get him to do his work. I didn't actually even want him to have to do the work, so I was mad at the teachers for making me homeschool him. I was pissed at everyone. I felt guilty and resentful, frustrated and sad. And I knew these feelings well, and I recognized them. So I sat my butt outside on my front porch and cried. While I was releasing all of those feelings, a thought popped in. Kala, my 15-year-old daughter, She loves to organize. And Kirk, my 8-year-old son, idolizes his sister. What if I asked Kala if she was interested in creating a homeschool and being Kirk's teacher? She was thrilled. We created a school in our basement filled with art supplies and books and everything that they needed. And Kirk completed his schoolwork with no complaints because he was being taught by someone who actually wanted to teach him. And he loved that. Their energies matched. And I learned that if I just take it easy on myself, meet my feelings without judgment, and realize that I'm not the only person who can manage things, that I will be willingly assisted. Dr. Dan Siegel says, grief allows you to let go of something you have lost only when you begin to accept what you now have in its place. As our mind clings to the familiar, to our established expectations, we can become trapped in feelings of disappointment, confusion, anger. That creates our own internal worlds of suffering. He's a pretty smart dude. Grief is an important and necessary part of healing. Things happen in our lives that take us down to the mat. What has been very difficult with this pandemic is that our healthcare workers haven't had a chance to stop. They have been run off their feet, they have gotten ill themselves, and whether we can feel it or not, we have all been living in an environment of fear and anxiety. With all of that going on, who has the time to grieve? When we grieve, we move ourselves through the feelings of helplessness, angst, frustration, anger, and bottomless sadness. We must take the time to grieve the things we cannot change, the people we cannot bring back, and the people we no longer are. We are never again going to be the people that lived without a pandemic. That must be grieved. We are never going to be able to bring our friends, family, residents that have passed back. That must be grieved. Four years ago, my dad suddenly died of a massive heart attack, on Christmas Day no less. After the initial shock of it, I knew I had to grieve, but I had no idea what that actually meant. Of course I cried, I sobbed, I screamed, and yet I was completely shut down. I was hiding behind an internal wall because life hurt too much. I was literally just blindly walking through the motions of life. It wasn't until I heard myself say in my head, I will never be the Kerry I was before my dad died. That thought shook me. I had a bunch of realizations around that one thought, and some of them were, I don't have to try to make things how they were. I can release my past self. I felt like I was a snake slithering out of its old skin into a renewed, shiny, silkier me. I knew my dad was proud of me, and I could feel his love, and I feel his love even more now than I did when he was alive. I would like to offer something to all of you, especially those of you in long-term care. For those of you who have had to walk past rooms that once housed a resident, for those who saw the fear in a resident's eyes because they couldn't tell it was you from behind your masks, for those who with a gloved hand held your resident's hand because they could not be with their families and they felt scared and alone. Find time to come together as a team, to remember those who have passed, share stories, Write down your thoughts and share them with each other. Make some sort of ritual around it so that you can collectively grieve together. You have been through and continue to go through so much. You must take the time. Your mind, body, and spirit need to transition this time of COVID. Gift that to yourselves and to your teams. The media has largely fueled this campaign of us against COVID-19. And I keep hearing fighting COVID-19, or we're in this fight against COVID-19 together. Just look at some of the images circulating online and you will recognize what I'm saying. I ask, how could we change that message to be for something rather than against it? For example, keep your distance so that we can come together. Or get vaccinated to connect. Or keeping communities safe, one needle at a time. When we are against something, we must have a low vibrational feeling within ourselves to be able to be against it. Over time, that is not healthy for us. Anger, fear, frustration, sadness, worry, they all have a purpose. But when they are directed at something or someone, we must all be aware that we are giving power to that thing or person. When we say, you are the enemy, you must be stopped, we are basically saying, I'm not in control, everything happens to me, and I am a victim to my circumstances. So right now, you might be saying, but I'm not in control of this pandemic. I do everything that is suggested. I'm responsible. I ensure that my family is responsible. And everything is out of my control. Well, that is true. However, the part that is not out of your control is how you respond to the pandemic. Indulge me for just a moment. Say out loud to yourself, I hate COVID-19. I can't see the people that I love. I can't go to the places that I love, and it's all COVID's fault. Now check in with your body. How does that feel? I feel small. I feel out of control. I feel scared. My chest is tight. My stomach is hard. Now say out loud to yourself, COVID-19 is an event that I get to live through and experience and grow from. There will be loss, and that is hard. And I know that this too shall pass. Now, how does that feel? I feel empowered. I feel grounded. I feel present. And I feel like a grown-up. This is a way that we take our power back. As I said before, a necessary part of the journey is to grieve. And that looks like screaming in rageful agony, maybe. And yet, it will pass. And when it does, you have the opportunity to choose how you are going to respond. You can come from fear which looks like, boo hiss COVID, you're evil and yucky, or you can choose love and slow yourself down. Take inventory of what matters in your life and use this opportunity that we all have at our disposal and grow. I asked my team 2 questions in preparation for this talk. What do you blame COVID for, and what do you praise COVID for? These are some of their answers, and I'm sure that you will be able to relate. My daughter missed a once-in-a-lifetime high school grad ceremony and celebration, and her first year at college has been off campus. These two experiences are really social experiences, and although the grads and their teachers made the most of it, and we were fortunate to have beautiful weather, so small celebrations outdoors were possible, I wish she had been able to celebrate these achievements fully. I have enjoyed how my community and neighborhood came together to support and protect each other when the pandemic arrived. My local community has a large senior population, and through our local Facebook page, neighbors were shopping, sharing toilet paper, and cleaning supply stockpiles, sewing masks, preparing meals, and checking in when family was not able to. When Our Place put the call out for support to help the homeless self-isolate, sleeping bags, tents, and other camping supplies were purchased and donated. I have not been able to be a part of my family and friends' milestones. That's been the hardest part. COVID has taught me to be patient and not to rush. I have time to do things I never felt like I had time for before, like learning to cook and learning to garden. I praise COVID for helping me realize who the important people are in my life, as we still have the technology to reach out and see the ones we love. COVID has definitely increased my isolation. Being an introvert at first, I was good with this, but it makes it too easy to isolate. This is not good for mental health in the long term. COVID has made me appreciate my friends and family more. While isolating at home, especially in the early days, the coming together of close neighbors has been an unexpected highlight. Congregating with a safe distance in our backyards not only lifted our spirits, but got us engaged again with wonderful people that surround us. And this will continue onwards. COVID has taken my social life, and I blame COVID for these extra 15 pounds. COVID has also given us the chance to work from home, which I really appreciate. And the plus side is everyone is much more conscious about sanitization, so I haven't been sick since it started. Well, it has definitely affected my freedom to be honest, and I have not left home at all for over a year. But it has brought my family close together, and I have discovered all kinds of new crafty projects. I thank my team for their wonderful and vulnerable feedback, and I can say that in the last year I have grown to deeply appreciate our team at work, even more than I did before, because we all work so hard and we are all there for each other. It is hard not physically being in each other's company each day like we used to, but our personal connections have gotten stronger. This is another way that we find the light. Gratitude. Finding what the COVID-19 pandemic has brought to our lives. I know, we all hear that we should be meditating to the point where we may even roll our eyes when someone suggests it. Well, sadly, it is time to prepare your eye roll, because I'm about to suggest that you do some meditating, even 5 minutes a day. And there are a multitude of apps and websites and YouTube videos out there to assist you if you would like to be guided in that meditation. However, a guided meditation isn't the only way to meditate. All that is required to constitute meditation is to sit in silent awareness and observe your thoughts like you are watching cars go by. To be aware simply means to feel what you may be sitting on or leaning on, to smell the scents in the room, to hear any sounds that are near you, and observe yourself as the watcher of your thoughts, or the watcher of the breath, or the watcher of the silence. Oh, there's a thought. Interesting. Come back to now. Oh, there's another thought I'm going to come back to now. And the thoughts might be, ugh, my back is killing me. I don't want to sit here anymore. I have way too much to do. So notice those thoughts. Say thank you and carry on with your breath. When we meditate on a regular basis, it gets easier to relax and slow ourselves down. That is the main point. And then there is a multitude of scientifically based reasons for meditating. Increased self-awareness, increased memory, and the ability to calm your central nervous system, just to name a few. So I know we are all busy and we are all so wrapped up in the day-to-day of our lives, myself included. I endeavor to meditate every day, and I don't always. I have to say to you, though, who else is going to observe us and listen to us like us? Don't we deserve that kind of attention? Don't we deserve to have our blind spots come to the surface so that we can look at them and heal them, so that we are no longer at the effect of them? Doesn't that sound nice? Well, that is just a way to come to peace, to find the light, even during a pandemic. I just want to touch on gratitude for a minute. There are so many reasons why gratitude can change our mindset. When we have negative self-talk going on, we'll listen to it and it'll tear us down. And we talk to ourselves in such a way that we would never accept from someone else. And when we catch ourselves doing it, berating ourselves in our head, "You're so stupid. I can't believe you acted that way. Why would you let that person talk to you like that? Ugh, what the heck is wrong with you?" These are just some of the things my head says to me. When I catch that, I will say, "Oh, you know what? You're doing your very best. And I am so grateful for that tree right there. It's so beautiful. Oh, and there's a squirrel climbing in it. That's really cute. And I am so grateful that I have this nice car that has gas in it and I can get home. And when I get there, I have my beautiful family, and I'm so grateful to my beautiful family." And do you know what? That negative self-talk is so far in the distance that it's like it never even happened. That's how powerful gratitude is. So we've all heard about gratitude journals, and lots of people do that, and there's lots of different practices out there, and you can literally Google gratitude or gratitude journal or whatever and find some sort of practice that might work for you. But I encourage you to find a way to integrate gratefulness into your day-to-day. A team member of mine at work, we used to send each other 10 things that we were grateful for every single day. And I would kill myself laughing at some of them. And it really just started my day in such a nice way. And now that I say that out loud, I think I might start that up again, even if I just send the email to myself. Because it's just so nice and refreshing to open up your email at the beginning of the day and have the first message be positive from someone that you care about, even if that someone that you care about is you. How fun! So, we are coming to the end of our time together. And I really just wanted to highlight a couple of things so that you can have some key takeaways. I think we need to remember that every single thing that we have happening in our lives is going to be affected by our perspective. That is how we see it. You've probably got examples of siblings that live in a house and experienced the exact same scenario. And one sibling took it as a horrible event, and the other sibling has no clue what that person's talking about. They're like, I was right there. They weren't rude at all. It's because we see it through our own eyes. We see it through our perception. That's how it works. So if we can just remember that if we're having a reaction to whatever it is that's happening, we need to take a step back. And we need to grab hold of ourselves and ask, ooh boy, what is this about? Why am I having such a reaction? I'm going to take a minute. Because the last thing any of us want is to blow up events in our lives and, have to go back and make reparations with friends and family that we love, that we just crapped all over because we were having a bad day. None of us want to do that. So if we can just remember that you take a minute when you're about to freak out and just collect yourself. And if you can't do it in the presence of other people, get yourself out of there. Go to the bathroom. Collect yourself. And then you can come back to the situation as your grown-up, magnificent self and, not a toddler in a grown-up suit. So we can't ever really truly move through something until we've felt it fully. And that's where grieving comes in. That's where acknowledging our feelings comes in. That's where acknowledging the sensations in our body comes in. Our body only has one way of talking to us. It's usually through symptoms and pain. And so when those things are happening, feel them. You don't want to resist them. You want to allow for it and get curious about it. And you can get curious about your own symptoms and your own pain and your own internal feelings in meditation, in awareness. Anytime you take the time to be quiet and just observe without judgment, just allow, make friends with the feeling, the emotion, the sensation, the thought. Make friends with it. Allow for it. Journal if that helps you. We all have a million ways of how to process, but process it. Make yourself the priority so that you can move through the difficult feelings. Then you won't be worried about the joy when it comes. Because so many of us, will actually forebode that joy for fear that it's going to go away. So then we don't even really get to enjoy the joy because we're worried about it leaving. So when we actually acknowledge all of our feelings to the fullness of them, then we don't just make room for certain ones. We don't just make some of them important. We leave space for all of them. So we don't have to be at the effect or attach ourselves to any of them. We can just let go and let ourselves float down the river of life. So, how have I found the light during this pandemic? Well, I have been able to spend so much time with my family, which has been amazing. And I have created a garden, and we actually have made all of our own vegetables, and it's been so rewarding. And what I think is a real key thing in all of this is that whatever we focus on is what grows. So if we are focusing on the difficulty and the strife and the angst of what the pandemic has brought, then that's what's taking up real estate in our minds. And as I said before, it's important to grieve that. It is important to acknowledge that and to really feel your feelings fully about it, not to leapfrog over them and choose positivity, because that doesn't work either. You really do need to feel them fully. And then once you're done feeling them, you don't want to dwell there, because there's got to be a lift. Just like everything, waves ebb and flow. You have to lift out eventually. And when you focus on the positives that have come out of the pandemic, what it is you've gained from it, then that's what grows. And those are the feelings of joy and peace and abundance and harmony that grow within you. So, how have I found the light in the pandemic? Well, take this talk, for example. If it wasn't for the pandemic, we would all be in a great big conference room together, and I likely would be wearing heels as opposed to my slippers. So, we all have our little things that we choose to focus on. And I really have to thank you all so much for wearing your slippers at home with me, and for all of our frontline workers, for the incredible work that you have all done. There's no way that anyone's going to ever be able to properly thank you. So from the very depths of my heart, I thank you all so much for your time and your efforts and everything that you've done. Take good care.